This is Bob Oliphant from the Westford Historical Society and Museum, bringing you episode 45 of Season 4 of the Westford Wardsman podcast. The Westford Wardsman newspaper was part of Turner's Public Spirit, a weekly newspaper in Ayer a century ago. In this episode, we'll be reading the Wardsman for the week ending Saturday, November 11th, 1911, and I'll elaborate on what was happening in Westford that week. The week starts with the Westford Center section. Communications from the New York offices of the Hamburg American Line's crews around the world state that they have received cable messages from the SS Cleveland from Madeira, Gibraltar, and Villefranche, telling of the arrival and departure from those places as per schedule. All well on board and the trip moving delightful. This will interest the many friends of Mrs. Elizabeth Whitney and Mr. and Mrs. Walter Wright, who are passengers on this cruise. Mrs. Will R. Carver and baby daughter, who have been spending the summer and fall in Westford, returned to their home in Somerville the 1st of November. Miss Miranda Luce's longtime friend, Mrs. Stockdale of Mansfield, has been spending several days with her this week. Mrs. A.S. Wright's niece and companion, Mrs. Etta Lewis, is absent at the home of her son, Harry Lewis, where she has welcomed another little grandchild. Mrs. Wiley M. Wright has been entertaining her father, Cyrus Hosmer of Wakefield, this week. Cyrus Hosmer had lived in Westford and was one of the original 7 trustees when the Methodist Episcopal Church at Granville was formed in 1869. Miss Sarah Loker, after presiding at the Tadmont Club Tuesday afternoon, went the next morning for the remainder of the week to visit a friend in Keene, New Hampshire. Mrs. Herbert Hildreth's many friends are glad she is making a good convalescence from the operation on her throat that she underwent recently at the Lowell General Hospital. The electricians completed their work and the new electric lights were turned on for the first time Wednesday evening for lighting the streets. Those who had their houses wired have had them lighted for some time. The bright moonlight competed for honors somewhat Wednesday evening, but come dark nights with our tree-lined main streets, this latest improvement will be thoroughly appreciated. Workmen have been busy this past week getting Whitney Park in order for the winter. Shrubs have been set to replace those that did not withstand the severe drought earlier in the season, and the remainder of the substantial cement and wooden seats have been permanently placed. This is the little park that's just to the east of Rodenbush Community Center. Friends of the Mrs. Atwood have received postals, that is postcards, from them en route to the Pacific Coast, telling of a pleasant trip thus far. Owing to the fact that 33 Westford patrons attended Neighbors' Night by special invitation the previous evening, and 12 others went to Littleton the same evening, the attendance was somewhat small at the Grange last Thursday evening, but those present had a pleasant time. Mrs. Josie Prescott had charge of the lecturer's hour and had special singing arranged in a Thanksgiving quotation contest, which was well carried out. About a dozen members of Westford Grange attended the meeting of North Middlesex Pomona Grange at Draycott last week Friday. The communion service was observed at the Congregational Church Sunday morning at the close of the regular preaching service with a large percentage of the members present. Miss Grace Lumbert has been presiding at the organ most acceptably and in the absence of Miss May Atwood, the regular organist. The Edward M. Abbott Hose Company held their regular monthly meeting at their headquarters on Boston Road Wednesday evening. The first supper of the season was served. Herbert Fletcher, William E. Wright, and Robert E. Prescott were appointed a committee of 3 to arrange for the annual Firemen's Ball. William Woods, William Wright, and Robert Prescott were appointed as a committee to confer with the Selectmen and Board of Fire Engineers and to act with full power in relation to electric lighting of the hose house. From 1908 to 1916, the Westford Center or Central Fire Station was located in rental quarters in the old wheelwright shop of Mrs. Nelson Tuttle at 14 Boston Road. In 1916, it moved to the old Westford Academy building, now the Westford Museum. The genial junior partner at Wright and Fletcher's store has been enjoying a vacation from store duties and been absent from town the greater part of this week. This was probably Harwood Livingston Dick Wright, the son of the original junior partner, Nahum Harwood Wright, who died in 1910. The next paragraph is titled Club Meeting. The fine weather Tuesday was an incentive to an excellent attendance at the Tadmont Club at Library Hall. Charles Prescott had charge of the program and gave the first paper in the season's special topic for study of South America. The special subject for his meeting was the dramatic story of the conquest of Peru. The paper was carefully prepared and full of interest and instruction and promises well for the success of the perusal of the season's study. Mr. Prescott illustrated his talk with a large map of the country. Roll call was responded to with quotations, etc., suitable to autumn, and was well sustained. The club's recent action to enlarge the membership from 75 to 100 has admitted the following new members: Mrs. David Grieg, Mrs. Wiley Wright, Mrs. Walter Merritt, Mrs. Dexter Cogshell, Mrs. Ella Langley, Mrs. Arthur Wilson, and Mrs. Edward Prescott. The next section is titled An Interesting Address. At the Congregational Church Sunday evening, Superintendent of Schools Frank Hill of Littleton was the special guest and speaker of the evening. Mr. Hill gave a most excellent address, particularly to the young people, but of interest to all who heard him. There was a large number present to hear Mr. Hill. Some points particularly well elucidated were the relation of scholars to their parents, that the spiritual side of a child's nature should not be neglected, and that the best mental development could not be attained without attention to the physical, moral, and ethical training. Also, the mutual relations of the school and home. The dominant impression conveyed by Mr. Hill in all that he said was a very genuine, intelligent, and sympathetic interest in school children individually and collectively. Many took the opportunity to express their appreciation to Mr. Hill at the close of the meeting for his gracious service. Mr. Osgood conducted the song service, and there was special singing by Miss Althea Sims. The next section is the About Town section. A small brook that is tossed about among the rocks on the northerly slopes of Francis Hill, near the Fletcher farm at Brookside, has been cleared of the gathered debris of years, enabling transportation by the way of water to Stony Brook and thence to the sea to be more modernly rapid. Part of the way, this water is the dividing line between the Fletcher farm and the home place of John Sundberg. A new farmer's wire fence is being erected on the line, leaving the brook on the Fletcher farm. Augustus Fletcher Whidden is in charge of improvements. In addition, a new telephone line will soon connect at Brookside. The John Perkins family have got cozily settled in the John H. Decatur house on the Lowell Road, having moved from the Bean Cottage at Westford Center. Bean was a cottage that was owned by a Bean. It's a capital B. A carload of stone at the H.E. Fletcher Stone Quarry on Oak Hill got started on downgrade last week, running at a high rate of speed to Brookside, where the car jumped the track, making it necessary to unload the stone. The electric lighting apparatus at Brookside is all ready for unveiling. Thomas Bartlett, one of the substantials of Brookside, has moved his personality to Vermont. All other valuables, including a wife and 7 children, still keep guard over the industrial life of Brookside. C.R.P. Decatur is ill at his home on the Lowell Road, being confined to the house. He lived at the Pelatiah Fletcher House, 54 Lowell Road. Heart trouble and rheumatism of long standing are the chief contestants for control, and Dr. Wells is the referee. J. Willard Fletcher is lowering his well on the Plain Road near Westford Station. J. H. Crockett of North Chelmsford is the detective who is in search of the missing water with steam drill accompaniment. Next, we have a letter to the editor. So saith the election returns, and the defeated candidate is not sitting among the mourners, and several causes were contributory. This was written by Samuel L. Taylor, author of the About Town section of the Wardsman, and this letter to the editor was about his narrow defeat as a representative to the state legislature, but he would win the seat at the 1912 election. He was defeated by Edward Fisher, the incumbent, also a Westford man and lawyer. A strong man and a good record on nonpartisan lines. Carlisle sulked, action fell into a vinegar vat, and Westford whipped in on the Ellis Milk Bill and other bygone grievances, and where the defeated candidate was not involved, a clear case of, quote, we can't get at the right party for the redress, we will get at their pet candidate, end quote. Much obliged, gentlemen. You have had the opportunity of, quote, gnashing your teeth, end quote, without the compensation of having dealt any punishment whatever to the defeated candidate. In contrast to the correct picture of the above towns was the increase of loyalty from last year, and unexpected in its fullness, in the towns of Ayer, Chelmsford, and Littleton, who clung to the rigging and encouragingly shouted, quote, go it, old boy, and see if you can't land it, end quote. You have voted me into the thankful and appreciative realm, and I ought to say a word more appreciative than bare thanks, but until I can dig up some more expressive word, it will have to stand at that. The defeat carries with it the best goodwill towards all who voted for him and to those who voted against him, and has no vials of wrath stored up for future use, but is one of the happy men in the 11th district, both in the result in the district and in that larger happiness in the thought that still remaineth, the inheritance of congenial home and rural life with its far-reaching influence and rewards. The next section is the Forge Village section. Miss Rachel Cherry entertained about 23 young guests at her home on Halloween. A most enjoyable evening was spent with the usual appropriate games. Many of the young people were dressed as ghosts. The merry party broke up at midnight, each receiving a souvenir of the occasion. The electric lights, which have recently been placed in position in the different streets, were turned on for the first time on Wednesday evening and will certainly be appreciated, not only by the village people, but also by non-residents as well, who may have occasion to traverse the village. George Weaver, who has recently accepted the position of manager of Mr. Priest's large poultry farm at North Littleton, intends to move his family there shortly. Miss Sadie Smith has recently joined the Choral Society of Lowell. Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Bennett are rejoicing over the arrival of a little daughter at their home last week, Thursday. Alice Bennett was born on November 2nd, 1911. The Ladies' Sewing Circle met at Recreation Hall on Wednesday afternoon at the usual hour. A dainty collation was served after the meeting. Recreation Hall was the meeting room in St. Andrew's Mission. Mr. and Mrs. Fred Naylor are occupying the cottage on Pine Hill, formerly occupied by Mrs. Miller. Mrs. John Jones of Worcester was the guest of her parents, Mr. and Mrs. William Burnett, on Saturday and Sunday. The Mrs. Mary and Agnes Moran of Lowell visited at the home of Miss Nellie Burns over Sunday. Edmund Hunt and family recently moved into one of the new houses on Orchard Street. Loyal Self-Help Lodge of Oddfellows held their regular meeting at Abbott Hall on Monday evening. A large attendance was present. John Brown, who has recently been working in Ayer, has accepted a position in Manchester, New Hampshire. Gerald Daly has returned to Fitchburg after his illness of the past couple of weeks. And that's the news in Westford for the week ending November 11th, 1911. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Ryan Cousins of Westford CAT for providing technical support. You can find transcriptions and podcasts from the Westford Wardsman at our website at museum.westford.org or visit the Historical Society's Facebook page for more Westford news from days gone by. This is Bob Oliphant, and I hope you will join us for next week's Westford Wardsman podcast. Thank you.